Okay, so knitting oil. You might not think about it much, but turns out there's a surprisingly big global market for it.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just, a tiny niche. We're talking about the stuff that keeps massive textile operations running smoothly.
Exactly. So today, we're going to dig into a report on this market. We want to understand its current size, where it's headed, and, well, why it matters.
Right. The goal is to unpack the key info market size, growth forecasts, regional stuff, the types of oil, what's driving demand, basically give you a clear snapshot.
Let's jump in then. What's the headline figure? How big is this market globally?
Okay, so for 2025, the estimate is USD 35.9 million.
35.9 million. Okay.
And it's growing.
It is. Projected to hit USD 57.21 million by 2033. That's a CAGR, compound annual growth rate of 6.00% between 2025 and 2033.
A 6% growth rate, that's pretty solid. What's fueling that?
Interestingly, the report flags increasing sustainability awareness as a key driver.
Sustainability. For knitting oil. That's
Yeah.
unexpected. Well, it shows how those broader concerns are filtering down, The whole textile industry is feeling the pressure for more eco-friendly practices, right down to the lubricants.
That makes sense. It's not just the yarn, it's the whole process.
Yeah.
Okay, so where is this market biggest? Let's look at the regions.
North America leads the pack. They've got over 40% of the market share.
Over 40%? Wow. What's the dollar figure for 2025?
Estimated at USD 13.28 million for 2025.
And their growth? Lower than the global average.
Slightly, yeah. Projected CAGR of 4.8% through 2033. The U.S. is the dominant force there, naturally.
Right. The U.S. is at 10.48 million in 2025, growing at 4.6%.
Yeah.
Then Canada and Mexico following.
Exactly. Canada at 1.59 million with 5.6% growth, and Mexico at 1.21 million with 5.3% growth.
So what's driving it in North America specifically? Is it different?
Seems to be a focus on what the report calls high-tech knitting oils. Think performance fabrics, sportswear, luxury stuff.
Ah, so specialized applications needing precision.
Precisely. Precision, customization, automation are big there. And even with that tech focus, sustainability is still a growing factor.
Interesting. Okay, moving across the pond to Europe, second largest.
Yep, second largest, a bit over 30% share. Their market size for 2025 is around USD 10.41 million.
And their growth rate.
A bit higher than North America's, actually. 5.1% CAGR projected up to 2033.
Which countries are key players in yarn?
Germany's the leader, about 2.06 million USD, 5.3% CGR. Then the UK, pretty strong growth there at 5.9%, reaching 1.75 million. Russia's significant too.
And Italy, France, Spain?
All contributing. Italy, France, Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, even Luxembourg are mentioned, with varying market sizes and CGRs, mostly in the 4-5% range.
So what's the story in Europe? High-quality machines.
Seems like it. Demand for top-notch knitting machines, for apparel, technical textiles, engineered fabrics and luxury fashion, plus that trend towards automation and smart knitting tech.
Right, needing the right oils to keep those advanced machines happy. Okay, now, Asia-Pacific. You mentioned high growth potential there.
Definitely. APAC has the highest projected CAGR, currently around 23% market share, which is about USD 8.62 million in 2025.
But the growth rate is?
A really impressive 8.8% CAGR from 2025 to 2033.
Wow, 8.8%. That's significant. Who's leading the charge?
China is the biggest market in APAC, USD 3.62 million in 2025 with an 8.3% CAGR. But you also see strong growth across Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asia.
And India? I thought I saw a really high number for India.
You did. India's projected CAGR is actually the highest mentioned at 10.7%.
10.7%.
Yeah.
Why such rapid growth in APAC?
Well, it's home to major textile manufacturing hubs, isn't it?
Right.
China, India, Bangladesh, Vietnam. They're powerhouses.
Right, massive production volumes.
And they're investing heavily in upgrading their machinery, adopting more advanced tech. That drives demand for better quality, sometimes specialized knitting oils.
Makes sense. What about the other regions? South America?
South America holds just over 5% market share, about 1.36 million USD in 2025, growing at a decent 6.3% CAGR. Brazil's the main player there.
And the drivers. Similar themes.
Yeah, rising demand for apparel and home textiles, that growing middle class, plus a trend towards sustainable practices, biodegradable oils specifically.
Okay. Then the Middle East.
Around 2% share, but actually a slightly higher growth rate projected, 6.5% CAGR, market size around 1.44 million USD in 2025. Saudi Arabia and the UAE lead there.
What's pushing growth in the Middle East?
Industrialization, expanding textile manufacturing, their strategic location for trade helps, plus investments in tech and that growing sustainability awareness again.
And finally, Africa. Smallest share.
Yeah, currently about 1%, roughly 0.79 million USD in 2025, and the lowest projected CAGR at 2.3%.
Slower growth. Any
Why?
particular reason?
Well, the textile industry is still developing in many parts, though countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria are seeing improvements in manufacturing. There's potential with the young population and growing middle class, but infrastructure investment is still catching up. South Africa is the biggest market within the region currently.
Okay, that gives us a good global picture. Now, what about the oils themselves? What types are we talking about?
The report breaks it down by base oil. The dominant type right now is synthetic oil.
Synthetic, why is that?
Probably widespread use, generally lower cost, consistent performance, pretty versatile. It's the workhorse.
Okay. But you mentioned sustainability earlier.
Exactly. So the fastest growing segment is biodegradable oils. That directly links back to that environmental push we talked about. Consumers and brands want greener options.
Right. So synthetic is big, but biodegradable is catching up fast. Are there others?
Mineral oils are also mentioned as a category.
Got it. So synthetic, biodegradable, mineral. Now, how are they used? What kinds of machines?
They looked at application by machine type. The largest share currently belongs to the flatbed machine segment.
Flatbed machines. Those are for like sweaters, more intricate stuff.
Yeah, often used for knitting specific panels or for complex patterns, things that get sewn together later.
Like sweaters, yeah.
Okay, but is that where the growth is?
Actually, no. The segment that's expanding rapidly is the circular knit machine segment.
Circular knit, so tubes of fabric. Exactly. Think t-shirts, hosiery, seamless garments. These machines are fast, efficient, great for high-volume production. Demand for those kinds of clothes is driving this segment's growth.
Makes sense. High volume, everyday wear. Any other machine types?
Full fashion machines were also mentioned as an application area.
Okay, so let's pull back a bit. What are the main forces shaping this whole market? The big drivers.
We've hit on them, really. 1, growing sustainability awareness, that's huge. 2, technological advancements in the knitting machines themselves. And 3, just the overall growth of the apparel industry globally.
Right, but it can't all be smooth sailing. What are the roadblocks, the restraints?
The main ones mentioned are fluctuations in raw material costs. The base oils can be volatile in price, and general uncertainty in consumer demand can make long-term planning tricky for manufacturers.
Yeah, economic ups and downs, fashion trends changing. That must impact things. Speaking of trends, what's new in knitwear itself that might affect the oil market?
Well, customization and personalization are definitely growing. The report mentions a specific brand launching, Saint Sinners, using eco yarns and 3D knitting tech for custom pieces.
Interesting. 3D knitting. That probably needs pretty specific lubrication.
Could well do. And just generally, there's a bigger push towards using more eco-friendly fabrics overall, which again ties back to the sustainability driver for the oils, too.
It all seems connected. So who are the companies actually making and selling this knitting oil? Is it concentrated?
The report says it's highly competitive, a mix of big global players and more regional specialists.
Any names mentioned?
Yeah, names like Indian Oil Corporation, Paris Lubricants, Eastern Petroleum, Carl Beecham Lubricants, DNA Lubricants Factory LLC.
Okay. And what are their strategies? How do they compete?
Seems like the usual playbook for a competitive industrial market. Offer a wide range of products, have strong distribution networks, and focus on innovation developing better, maybe more sustainable oils.
And you mentioned something about a big investment in the knitwear space?
Yeah, not an oil company, but Ramp Knitwear raised USD $150 million in April 2024, valuing them at like $7.65 billion.
Wow, that's serious money.
It is. And while it's broader knitwear, it signals strong investor confidence in the future of this whole sector, which indirectly supports the outlook for things like knitting oil, too.
Good point. Okay, so let's try and sum this up. We've got a growing global market for knitting oil, pushing towards maybe $60 million by 2033.
Driven significantly by sustainability demands and tech advancements in knitting machines.
North America and Europe are the biggest markets now, but Asia Pacific is where the really fast growth is happening, especially in places like India and China.
And while synthetic oils are the standard right now, biodegradable options are the ones gaining ground fastest.
Driven by demand for things like t-shirts and seamless wear using circular knitting machines.
Exactly. And it's a competitive field with companies focusing on diverse products and innovation.
I think the thing that really jumped out at me was that sustainability angle influencing such an industrial product.
Me too. It shows how deep those environmental considerations are running now. It's not just a label on the final garment, it affects the whole supply chain.
Absolutely. So, final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Given this huge push for sustainable materials and greener manufacturing, how else could this knitting oil market evolve? We see biodegradable growing, but what's next?
Could we see entirely new types of bio-based lubricants? Or maybe innovations in how the oil is applied to minimize waste even further? How will oil chemistry need to change to support even more advanced, perhaps water-saving knitting technologies?
Lots to think about. It really highlights how these seemingly small cogs, like knitting oil, are crucial parts of the massive global textile machine, and how they're constantly adapting to bigger trends.